Hi, welcome to Lord of Anime Recaps. In this video, we will be taking a look at the first 4 episodes of the series, Land of the Lustrous. In the remote future, humanity has undergone a metamorphosis into gemstones, devoid of any discernible genders. How did this transformative event transpire, and is there a potential for these gemstones to revert back to their original human state? Before we begin, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next episodes. At the start of the episode, we meet our central character Phosphophyllite, commonly known as Phos, in a world inhabited by 28 individuals crafted from crystalline gemstones. The majority of these beings identify as non-binary, meaning they do not possess specific genders. We see Phos asleep on a green field. He is awakened by 2 other young-looking gem people, Morganite and Genshi. These latter 2 are a red-haired and silver-haired pair of gems that are fighters. Morganite and Genshi notice a sunspot, indicating the presence of Lunarian fighters. These peculiar stone beings from the moon launch assaults on the gem inhabitants of Earth, with the intent of shattering them and utilizing the fragments as weapons or adornments. The gem community, led by the human-like figure Master Congo, finds itself in a perpetual struggle to repel these relentless Lunarian attacks. Phos wants to fight alongside Morganite and Genshi, but the latter points out that Phos is physically too weak and shatters too easily while fighting. Phos runs off to notify their master, as Morganite and Genshi head ahead to battle with the sunspot. On the battlefield, the sunspot throws arrows at the pair. Morganite is able to decapitate the sunspot, but from its severed head emerges yellow-tipped arrows. We learn that these crystal-stripped arrows were made by a gem person named Heliodor. Morganite and Genshi gather all the shards of their exploited friend and have him remade. Meanwhile, Master Congo leaves with Phos as soon as he hears about the battle. He destroys the sunspot immediately, accidentally shattering the fragile Phos. All the broken gem people, including Morganite and Genshi, who were apparently not doing well in the battle, are collected and sent to the doctor of this world, Rutile. In the infirmary, we learn that Rutile is one of the rare girls among most of the gem people. While working on the broken gems, Rutile explains that the gem people are a sort of immortal symbiote. They are crystals with living organisms within them. These organisms take energy from the sun, and if enough shredded pieces of them are gathered, they can be remade. Rutile helps get the injured back to shape. In the next scene, Master Congo has been having a hard time finding a job for Phos because of his weakness. He decides to assign Phos the task of creating an encyclopedia of their world. His assignment doesn't go well initially, as most of the gem people know very little about anything outside of their own work. Everyone tells Phos to ask Cinnabar, a crimson-haired gemstone, the only gemstone that is active at night, doing patrol. The other 27 gemstones depend too much on the sun to function, so they cannot work at night. Cinnabar is also poisonous, to both the life on the planet and also to other gem people. If any of them touches Cinnabar, no light passes through that part of the tainted gemstone, and it must be chipped away. At twilight, Phos seeks out Cinnabar, hoping to learn about the plants and other information from him. As soon as Phos arrives, Lunarians suddenly attack. Thankfully, Cinnabar fends them off with molten metal. However, in the process, he falls off a cliff, and Phos breaks his arms trying to save him. In the next scene, we see that Cinnabar is somehow perfectly fine. Phos, now at the edge of the cliff, almost falls off but is brought back by Cinnabar. This touch from Cinnabar means that Phos will now have to be chipped. Phos then learns that Cinnabar is leading an intensely lonely life. Since the Lunarians never arrive at night, Cinnabar can't really fight anyone. Cinnabar confides to Phos that he wants the Lunarians to take him away so that at least he can be of use as a weapon. Phos is shocked and saddened by this, so he decides that he will help Cinnabar find some kind of work. Cinnabar then tells Phos about some plants in the area for the encyclopedia. The following day, Cinnabar finds that Phos has left his journal in the field. He does not want to take it back to Phos, as he really doesn't trust the other gem people. Meanwhile, Phos is in deep thought, not knowing how to help Cinnabar. Shortly after, he grabs the legs of the approaching Jade, a dark green-haired gemstone person, and Euclase, a gemstone with half blue and half grey hair. Phos begs these 2 gems for help and advice, but is reluctant to tell them about Cinnabar, making his request a bit pointless. Jade suggests Phos check with Dia, a diamond gem. Dia has been learning new fighting techniques that the frustrated Phos could learn and add to his encyclopedia assignment. Meanwhile, Master Congo meditates, a state in which he is immovable and resistant to outsiders. A while later, Phos meets with Dia in the field and tells him about the need to learn new ideas for the encyclopedia. Dia tells Phos to simply try new experiences, that always gives people new ideas. Meanwhile, Phos notices that Dia's fighting partner, Bort, is nowhere in sight. Since Dia is not nearly as strong as Bort, the latter finds him a liability. This is why Dia is trying to develop new fighting strategies. Suddenly, the Lunarians arrive. Dia tries to fend off the Lunarians with the new technique, but to no avail. Thankfully, Bort arrives at the scene and destroys the central Lunarian, sending the other Lunarians into the dust. Following the encounter, he pulls off Dia's arm. He is angry that Dia was injured from the fight. However, Dia reveals that he is only trying to help Phos learn something new for the encyclopedia and asks if he could assist them both. They are suddenly interrupted by the Lunarians, who return but drift away, ignoring Phos, Bort, and Dia. They swarm over the home of the gems. The Lunarians then unload a giant shell in front of the gem home, realizing that their master is meditating so he cannot take care of the Lunarians. Dia, Bort, and Phos arrive in time to warn Jade and Euclase. While Bort prepares to fight off the Lunarians, Euclase tells Phos that the giant shell can be included in the latter's encyclopedia. Suddenly, a pink mollusk comes out of the shell and swallows Phos. Euclase tries to save him, but his blade gets melted. Meanwhile, a hot and tired Phos, still inside the mollusk, is slowly crumbling. Bort and Dia fight the mollusk from the outside. Inside, Phos starts breaking down into green jeweled blobs and dissolving in the mollusk. As he slowly dissolves, he thinks of his promise to find Cinnabar meaningful work. Dia points out to Bort that there is a bit of green jewel showing through a crack on the outside of the shell. He rushes forward to attack it, hoping to shatter it. Seeing this, an enraged Bort also rushes forward to save Dia from hurting himself. Finally, the shell is kicked into the water, and the mollusk inside shrivels up into a significantly smaller animal, one the size of a cat. Jade, Euclase, and Bort go into the water to see if they can find Phos inside the shell, but they find nothing. Just then, the now small mollusk jumps eagerly in front of Dia. This prompts him to think that Phos has transformed into this little creature. In the next scene, Dia, along with Bort and the others, takes the small mollusk to Rutil, hoping that the doctor will have the answer to fixing Phos. At the infirmary, Rutil restores Dia's broken arm that Phos had collected and dropped just prior to being swallowed by the mollusk. After being mended by Rutil, Dia leaves with the small mollusk, fearing that Phos will die when Rutil operates on him. In the following scene, Dia asks various gems for help, but none agree, and many are simply unwilling. Disheartened, he takes the mollusk to a secluded area and wonders if perhaps Phos would be better off as a mollusk. The scene then cuts to Cinnabar readying for his pointless work of patrolling ashore for enemies that will never show up at night. As Cinnabar walks towards the coastline, he sees a bright light. It's Dia, sleeping in the grass. Dia begs Cinnabar to help Phos, but Cinnabar is disgusted and amused that Phos has turned into a snail-like creature. He points out to Dia that mollusks must devour minerals to harden and strengthen their shells. Hearing this, Dia quickly remembers the green gemstone showing through the giant shell earlier. He thanks Cinnabar profusely and rushes towards the gem's home. Along with other gems, Dia pulls the enormous shell out of the water and brings out all the bits of the green gem. Rutil assembles the fragments and makes Phos whole. When Phos awakens, he angrily chases and berates the small mollusk for eating him earlier. Meanwhile, Master Kongu awakens to find from Jade that there were 2 Lunarian attacks. We then see Phos interacting with a small mollusk whose name is Ventricosus and is quite chatty. Phos learns that he is the ruler of the Admirabilis, the mollusk people. It turns out only Phos can hear her. Later, while lying on the grass field, Ventricosus suggests he and Phos go down to the sea, where people that are like the gems live. They could help Phos in getting work for Cinnabar, but the sea is off limits to the gems without permission from Kongu. We learn that the seawater washes away the white powder covering the gems, which can corrode their bodies. In the next scene, Euclase tells Rutil in the infirmary about getting resin to withstand the saltwater. Suddenly, a red-haired gem, Red Beryl, enters the infirmary looking for a lost uniform. Next, we see that Phos has taken the uniform along with the anti-salt resin Rutil had been searching for. It turns out that Phos is planning to go to the sea with Ventricosus. Unfortunately, he is caught and Master Kongu forbids his sea excursion. Later, Ventricosus says that he was not lying about there being people like the gems under the sea, and that he wants to see her homeland more than anything else. Phos feels sympathy for her and becomes determined to help Ventricosus find her way home. The pair then go under the sea, and Ventricosus quickly changes her form. We realize that he is the being that is like the gems, and that the people he was talking about were her own kind. Ventricosus explains that when there was a meteor attack, beings called humans fled to the sea and were split into 3 forms, representing the flesh, which is the mollusk-like Admirabilis, the bone, which is the gems, and the spirit, which is the Lunarians. Ventricosus continues to say that the Lunarians are trying to gather the flesh and bone to transform into the original human beings. Phos wonders why they must fight the Lunarians if they all had the same origins. Ventricosus explains that the Lunarians are greedy, a likely indication of what the original humans were like. Meanwhile, at the gem's place, Dia discovers that Phos is missing. Back at the sea, Phos grows tired of walking underwater. He lies down on the seafloor to rest. Suddenly, He is under attack from Lunarian weapons, which breaks his body. It turns out that Ventricosus has sold Phos out to the Lunarians in exchange for the life of her brother Aculeatus.